the bottom line is, when I say Bernie Sanders has been going up to a knife fight holding a spoon, it's truly the same exact thing when it comes to media. And before I give you what my recipe is, I actually want to show you a clip that I thought was interesting from fellow independent media ally Kyle Kalinske, who does Secular Talk. He proposed something that I think is interesting that I want to talk about for a second.
We either need to, moving forward, the left either needs to find a way to get corporate media to not hate us, or we need to actually build alternatives that are big enough to compete and set the narrative. Because I hate to say this, new media, myself included, we just aren't big enough yet to control the narrative or compete with old media. We're just not. We fell abysmally short. In many ways, this race was old media versus new media, and us new media people got our asses kicked. We just couldn't do enough to help Bernie and set the narrative and get him over the edge. We did okay with our demographic. Our demographic, by and large, is young people. In fact, we did very well with that demographic. Statistically, we got such a high percentage of young people, but it wasn't enough to win the election, because this was the revenge of the normie Democrat. The boomer liberal, the person who's drunk on MSNBC and CNN, and they genuinely believe the best way to beat Trump is with a cognitive declining Biden. So we're not big enough. So either we need to get bigger so that we could set the narrative, or we need to play the game of politics better and somehow find lefty candidates who the media doesn't despise. And maybe it's as simple as, I don't know, complimenting them and telling them they're awesome behind the scenes and building relationships behind the scenes and just avoiding outright attacking corporate media, in stump speeches or whatever it might be. I don't know the answer. And honestly, I don't know which one of those two paths is better in the long run. But what I do know is what we tried here, and Bernie is open and honest, and he's like me when he talks about the media. He doesn't like corporate media. But that really did backfire, because the nonstop, relentless, endless parade of Biden inevitability and sucking up to Biden and loving Biden and talking about his endorsements and saying he's the most electable, that absolutely had a deleterious impact on the election and helped Biden and hurt Bernie.
First of all, to address, and by the way, just so you know, I've privately messaged Kyle already today about the question he asked. And for those of you that have been watching Status Coup for a long time, we're not even 2 years old, but have been watching, I have been saying this for over a year. Don't get me wrong, status quo is not going to change. But I, unlike some other people in independent media, my ego is not so big that I refuse to join with other forces for the common good and the ultimate goal. So the difference between Kyle and I, and by the way, when I say difference, it's not like a good thing or a bad thing. It's just the difference. Kyle is openly a political, his goal is political. He is openly for Bernie. His goal as a commentator is to help get Bernie elected. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. My job as a journalist, I'm open that I support Bernie Sanders, but I have never, ever said, and my job is not to elect Bernie Sanders. And I know Jen feels that way too. There is a difference between a commentator and a journalist. With that said, my role at Status Coup, and Status Coup exists not for one man or woman, not for one candidate, not for one movement. We exist to literally counter the corporate media propaganda machine. We exist to literally hand a microphone to you, because you will never be given the microphone in corporate media. That's why we exist. We didn't create this slogan, give the microphone back to the people, because it would fit on a bumper sticker, or because we thought it was, what do they say, Jen? Market tested it, or market focused it? Trust me, we didn't. I believe truly in giving the microphone back to the people. But I also believe corporate media, I think people sometimes get confused by the term corporate media, and they don't quite understand what it actually is. Corporate media is literally a multi-billion-dollar industry of public relations professionals for corporate America masquerading as journalists with makeup on. Let me say that one more time so you understand what it is. Corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, all of these outlets. And I'm not saying every single journalist at every single outlet is terrible. But by and large, and by the way, how do I know? Because I've worked at two of them. Actually, I've worked at more than two of them. They are PR spinsters who put makeup on and pretend to be journalists. When CNN says, sources tell us, what they're actually telling you is what political operatives fed them. They don't verify whether it's true or not because it's spin. Most of what they report is spin fed to them by political operatives, by advisors to the president, by people. It's spin that they then regurgitate as news to drive a narrative. That's what corporate media is. It's just PR people masquerading as journalists. It is also, Anad, how do you pronounce it? Psychops? It is also one of the biggest, most well-funded psychops in the entire country because it controls the way people think. Majority, when I say people, I mean the majority older people that consume it. And let me give you another example of just how this psychops works, okay? Let me give you one more example.
I disagree because for a lot of women, and I do think that Senator Sanders and his campaign very much underestimate how much anger there still is on the part of a lot of women who, whether it was the Bernie bros who attacked them and Senator Sanders did nothing to try. I mean, literally people were being threatened. It was vicious in 2016.
Well, you're saying they're still angry the next 2 weeks going forward.
I'm saying that what I think his campaign isn't understanding is what's bad for him about this is he came into this race with a lot of baggage from 2016 about the way women were treated by the Bernie bros, by his campaign. I've spoken to women who worked on his campaign in 2016. It was not a welcoming environment for a lot of women. And so to then have that kind of exchange with Senator Warren, who a lot of us at least respect, even if you're not going to vote for her, you respect her, that doesn't look good for him. And that
she should have called him out that night.
Well, I think she
on
was
camera
trying
in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
What do you think? Look, I was like, I don't think about this.
I have I'm eating popcorn, but
So I'm sorry to have to play these things for you, but there's a point. Do you see what CNN did there right now? Well, not right now. This happened a while ago. What CNN did was put on Hillary Clinton's communications director from 2016, Karen Finney. Right there is a blatant conflict of interest. Why is Hillary Clinton's communication director on to discuss Bernie Sanders supporters on Twitter? They also put on Terry McAuliffe, the former governor of Virginia, who is lifetime best friends with Bill and Hillary Clinton, who is one of the biggest, people know him in D.C., one of the biggest scummy little douches in all of D.C. Do you see a progressive on that panel? Do you see any Bernie Sanders supporter? Do you see them even try to reach out to any Bernie Sanders supporter who might be online? By the way, a new study just came out that's revealed the Bernie bro thing is a myth. People studied online behavior of all candidates. It's a total myth. But the point wasn't that Bernie bros were attacking anybody. That anchor didn't ask her, do you have any proof that threats were made, physically or otherwise? It's the whole point is to gaslight viewers. The whole point is to distract viewers, in this case, older people, and to help form their opinions for them, for the candidate you want or against the candidate you don't want. That is what CNN is. That is what MSNBC is. That is why, literally, if any of you went to journalism school, listen to this. That is why literally CNN took Literally a story Elizabeth Warren told them, or Elizabeth Warren's top advisors told them. Bernie Sanders said X to me in a private meeting. Literally unverifiable. There is no way to verify it unless other people were in the room. Like it's basic journalism 101. And they sprung that into an all-out. By the way, these are tens of millions of dollars when you think of all the airtime allotted to these narratives. Bernie called Warren, said Warren can't, a woman can't run for president. This was 4 or 5 days. This is tens of millions of dollars in super PAC attack advertising masquerading as news. That's what it is, folks.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.